Hey guys, Cami is back for the original Season 3, Episode 3, I'll See You in Hell or New Orleans. Now I was definitely looking forward to this episode. This season has been on fire so far, and this episode, of course, continued that. Of course, this episode was amazing, and I think the strongest of the three by far. And by far, the most flashbacks we've had. Like, we had a lot of flashbacks in Episode 1, but this one was very flashback heavy and very backstory heavy. We're really starting to see how all of these new characters are connected, and a lot of the plot, a lot of the exposition is covered in this episode, which I really loved, and I really loved every minute of this episode. I thought it was a crazy episode as usual, and this is going to be just an insane season. I mean, the more the episodes go on, the more insane this gets, and I only feel this season is going to get more and more crazy as it goes on. But let's get into it because it was incredible. I really love the way this episode started. It was very reminiscent of the first episode. We see Klaus, and he's telling the story of Lucien and how he could never really, when he first saw Lucien, his family was really happy and everything was really great. And Klaus thought that Tristan was arrogant, but still had eyes for Aurora, who we still don't know too much about, which I like. I like that they're keeping the mystery of her character. I know it might piss off some people that they're not revealing anything, but again, we're only on episode 3, and we've known this character for 3 episodes, so I'm assuming we're going to find out more about her character as it goes on. And it was a love letter, but Klaus says that he would advise others, and Klaus says that the family need Lucien, and that he and Aurora would run with them. And Klaus lied to Lucien and told him that Aurora would not accept his note, and the truth was that Klaus was actually in love with her. And Lucien found the two kissing. The three are in a panic, and Lucien vows that they are not friends, and Klaus evades, but Lucien's taken by Tristan when he finds him with Aurora, and it's a very sad scene. I mean, you could clearly tell that it was all just a misunderstanding. Klaus didn't have the heart to tell him that, Aurora simply just didn't like him in that way, and if that would have happened, probably things would be a lot different now, and it's really sad. But we see he's telling a story to Elijah, who, this is the most interaction Klaus and Elijah have had since they've split up and gone their separate ways. Basically, in this episode, we see that they can't go their separate ways, and, he suggests that they murder Lucien, and, basically, Elijah realizes that something just doesn't add up. There has to be something more to the story, and that they may take a medieval approach. And Klaus wants to know if Elijah's finally forgiven him, but Elijah says, oh no, there's no way. He says only when hell freezes over, and of course, Elijah's not gonna forgive him. And again, I know this might annoy some people, but I think it makes sense, obviously. Elijah just has a different way of looking at things. He doesn't want to just merely just kill someone. He doesn't want to do that. He wants to find out more of the facts, while Klaus just wants to solve this easily. And while it may be a good idea, I do agree with Elijah that they need to find out more what's going on before, they know as much as we do. So then we see Will, the detective, that's his name, Will. He visits Lucien to ask him a few questions, and basically, Lucien is basically playing the victim card in this episode as well as he can. He's making it seem like he is innocent, he's as innocent as possible. I mean, definitely, he's very smart with that. And Cami tells Vincent that she suspects Lucien of the deaths, which is understandable, because obviously she was almost framed last week, and she knows that there can only be one person that's doing that, and that she's very suspicious of him. And basically, Will calls Vincent and says that they have Lucien at the station for questioning, and they're going to question him. So Hayley's dealing with the noise outside that interrupts Hope, and she can't cope. And I love the line where she was like, "Can you please keep the noise down? Some of us have toddlers." I thought that was really funny. And she can't cope with her current surroundings. She says she feels off. She just feels like something's missing. Jackson calls Freya to babysit Hope so that he can take Hayley out for the day. She's still going through a lot, obviously. She's been in a werewolf body, and she's getting used to being a full hybrid again. She's getting used to be able to do those things again, and, you can tell that she still has a lot of rage. Even though she took out her anger on Klaus, she still has a lot of rage built up inside of her, and she needs to get it out somehow, and I really like seeing that. Marcel isn't giving his army orders to keep everyone into line when he is approached by Aya, this girl Aya, who he has no idea who she is, and basically he's telling her, look, I don't want anything to do with you, can you just go away, I'm trying to talk to some men here. She literally takes out his men. Aya is a badass. We don't know who she is yet, but she is a badass. She takes out some of his men. Marcel asks her to see her out, she takes some of them out. She asks him if he will not listen to her offer, but Marcel prepares for battle instead. He does not want to listen to her, and he just doesn't want her there. So, Klaus and Elijah are then greeted by a woman who has been occupying Lucien's penthouse while he was at the station for questioning, And this woman seems like she's hiding a lot. Like, it seems like she doesn't really want to tell them anything. And Lucien is acting as he knows a lot about the case, but is not actually the killer, which is very smart in his behalf, I must say. Like I said, he's very good with lying. And basically, Will tells him that people like him make his own luck, whether it's good or bad. And Lucien says that he hates to be bored and that the detectives are boring him. I love these flat, like, look, you're boring me. Can we stop talking here? And he says he knows that Cami is behind the glass and asked to talk to her alone. So again, he's trying to make it seem like Cami is the one that's doing this. And he's going to basically blackmail her. Now, I thought this was going to be something like what Finn did with Cami, but this was much different what Lucien was doing. You know, he basically is making Cami look like she's the reason this happening. You know, what Finn did was just try to ally with Cami. What Lucien is doing is making it seem like Cami is the actual, you know, person that's killing all these people, and that Lucien isn't. Now, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, because Cami's obviously human, but cannibals, you know, she could be a cannibal for all I know. I mean, it's not entirely not plausible. I think it is definitely plausible. Some of it not. Some of it, yeah, there are some plot, you know, there are some threads there, but I think when it comes to any murder case, that's really how it's going to be. So Jackson then brings Hayley to the training gym so that she can blow off some steam, and he's trying hard to help her, and when she tells him she is in the mood for half-assed sparring, he knocks the stick out of her hands. They begin sparring, and it looks like he may have found a way to help her, just to get her aggression out, and Jackson's really good with her. I know a lot of people don't like Jackson, but like I said, he's good for Hayley. That's why she's picked him, because he's good with her, and they're good together. That's just how him and Hayley are. They have a good connection. They should be together, and I don't really see what the problem is. I know a lot of people don't like them, and I don't really see why. I think that they're really good together, and I don't really see a problem there. I honestly don't. I know a lot of people do, but I really don't. And, basically, Vincent doesn't want Cami to speak to Lucien, but she does anyway. He can tell that Lucien is something else up his sleeve, and I think Cami just wants to see what he can do and see how she can manipulate him, because she can tell that he is the killer. Cami's not an idiot. She knows that there's something more going on with Lucien, and she wants to get that information out of him. So Vincent accompanies her and tells Lucien that they know what he is, and Lucien then tells Cami and Vincent that the three of them are the same. They each have scars from the Michelson's wrath, and that was very interesting. The way he convinces them was very true. I mean, Vincent, not so much. I don't really see how Vincent has scars from their wrath, but Cami definitely. Cami has a lot of stuff going on there. I mean, she would not be in danger as much as she is. She would not be having as many problems with Klaus as she is. She probably wouldn't have really any problems in her life very much. However, there are some good things that have happened with Cami, like, you know, her, when she first told Klaus about, like, her abusive father and things like that. I mean, that was something big, that, you know, about how her father was murdered and things like that. That's something that she never told anyone. I mean, there is that, but I do see what Lucien is trying to do. And then we see this flashback here. Tristan is whipping Lucien for his treachery. And Tristan really does seem like just this really, he's an ass, really. Tristan is an ass, and Klaus and Elijah just come to see what's going on. Klaus tries to save Lucien, and Tristan says that he knows he and his family are beasts, but they think they're hiding from someone more savage than him. And Klaus attacks Tristan, and Tristan threatens to send troops to let everyone know that they are seeking refuge at his castle. And when Klaus lets Tristan go, he cuts Lucien's mouth in the same manner the victims in the French Quarter. And Lucien tells Cami and Vincent that he's being framed by someone who wants to see Klaus dead. So he's basically, now, I thought that he was just simply going to frame Cami, but no, that's not what he's doing. He's making them seem like he is legitimately innocent. You can tell that Cami does not buy it, though. Vincent, I think, might buy it, but Cami, I don't think buys it at all. You can just tell. And Marcel is trying to hold his own against Aya, but she's too strong for him. She says she was told to make him an offer and says she may have to do it somewhere else. She drugged Marcel and is likely going to take him captive, which is pretty insane. Marcel is to go through some really crazy stuff in this episode. I mean, Marcel is a character that I don't think we've seen tortured enough, and if you don't think we've seen Marcel tortured enough, this episode would do that, because he's tortured a lot, unfortunately. So Elijah and Klaus dig into the woman who showed the prophecy, because obviously the woman who showed the prophecy, that is a huge thing of what's going on with them. Obviously the woman said, you know, that they're all going to fall and that some terrible's going to happen. They're trying to figure out what it means, and they just can't really put it together yet. And Lucien has intentions for Cami, which they can tell, and Hayley's been training with Jackson, who's actually kicking her ass, which I thought was pretty funny. She tells him that all she could think about was Klaus and Davina exploiting them, who we do not see Davina this entire episode. Jackson tells her to get it out of her system and to stop feeling sorry for herself. She cuts him and tells him that she's sorry, he should go, and Jackson refuses to go. Hayley ends up feeding on him, which later turns into a steamy session between the two, and that was pretty crazy when that happened. But what I like about Jackson and Hayley is that even though they fight, they do love each other, and you see that in that scene, and that's something I think is always really great about Jackson and Hayley. I know a lot of people don't like them, but I just think they're really good for each other, and I don't really feel that Elijah shouldn't be with Hayley right now. I think he's just not in that place right now where he needs to be with her. He needs to mend fences with Klaus, and then he can be with Hayley. That's what I think about Elijah and Hayley. So Elijah comes to see Marcel, but finds Josh and the rest of the crew taken out. Josh is the only one left, and Marcel's missing, and Elijah asks if the woman who took Marcel had a name, and Josh tells Elijah that it's Aya, and Elijah seems like, you can just tell that Elijah's like, oh shit, I know who this is. We realize that this is a woman that he sired, so clearly this woman is there for Elijah for some reason, and we don't know why, but that's why she's there. And Cami is still trying to use reverse psychology on Lucien, try to get him to admit something, and he says that he needs Klaus to trust him. He plans on using Cami to help him trust Klaus, but you can just tell he has a darker plan. But Cami, again, she's not buying it. She's not buying it at all, but she's probably going to agree with him just because of the fact that she wants to get those answers out of him. She can tell that he's hiding something, and she wants to know what it is. So in a flashback, Klaus is helping Lucien. When he finally sees his face, he is enraged, stabs Klaus. Klaus says that Lucien must be mad to try to do that when he knows what Klaus is. And it's the first time that Klaus says that his blood could heal someone. And this was a very interesting scene here. I really like seeing this because, if you guys don't remember, the first episode, this was when Klaus was still first, turning into hybrid. He didn't fully understand what's going on with him, and he's starting to definitely understand that his blood can heal someone. And Lucien thought that he was like Klaus, and immediately rushed to kill Tristan for revenge. Tristan then killed Lucien, and he died for a bit, but of course, he's not going to die. And that was a very powerful scene, I have to say. Just the fact that Tristan killed him was pretty crazy. And in present day, Lucien says that he wouldn't undermine his own safety for it by committing the murders, and, he wouldn't do that. He's trying to make him seem as innocent as possible. And Lucien tells Cami that someone is framing him for the murders. Klaus interrupts and tells Cami and Vincent that he needs a word in private, and I'm like, oh shit, Klaus is not believing this. So Aya has brought Marcel to her own place and offered him and his crew help, and she's impressed by Marcel's accomplishments and asks to help return to New Orleans to what it was with him as a king. And that's when Elijah interrupts and reveals that Aya and the rest of her accomplices might have something sinister in mind. They should not trust them whatsoever. Which, yeah, probably that's not the right thing to do. And yeah, they should not trust them. So he attacks her, but lo and behold, Tristan approaches, asks Elijah to let her go, and I don't know exactly what they have planned, but it definitely seems like Tristan, Aya, and Aurora, and Lucien all seem to have something planned together. They all seem like they're separated, but I definitely feel like they all have something in common. What that is yet, I don't know, but it's not just something small. There definitely is something in common there, and it's not just a coincidence. I can tell there's something going on there. So Elijah lets go of Aya, and Tristan offers Elijah something to clean up his bloody hands, and Tristan tells Elijah that his sire lines are at stake, and that his sire lines, there's something very bad happening there. And Elijah asks Marcel, and you can definitely tell that that's really what's happening here. That's probably the danger that's coming, is that their sire lines are coming after them. You can definitely tell. And Elijah asks Marcel to leave. Marcel tells him that he should remember who his friends are, and Klaus, and I like Marcel saying that because, again, Elijah's really abandoned everyone except him and Hayley. He's abandoned Klaus, and Klaus is not his foe. He is, even though they're brothers, he really is his only friend that he's got, because Klaus is the one that has the same exact thing going on. Elijah needs to understand that. I get that Elijah and Klaus, are not in the best of terms right now, but they need to put that aside and just move on and realize that they can only really survive this if they ally with themselves. And Klaus and Lucien then arguing over his motives. Lucien says that he can cure a wolf bite on his own. He goes over all of his facts and points the finger towards Tristan, and he basically wants Klaus to think that Tristan is the one that's doing this, which honestly I think is a pretty smart plan because Klaus knows how deadly Tristan can be. Tristan seems like he's just as deadly as Lucien, and I'm going to say right now, Tristan and Lucien, like I said, are definitely working together. I don't know in what capacity, but they're definitely working together, and Klaus says it's an interesting theory, but he doesn't need Lucien's protection, and Lucien says that Klaus associates, makes him vulnerable, and Will comes in and clears Lucien, and there's another body and it was fresh, so it could not have been Lucien, and we know that it is Lucien. Now, what I'm personally thinking is that Lucien is having some people do the dirty work for him, because clearly we saw last week that Lucien is most likely the killer. We saw Lucien with blood on, we saw the blood in his face. It just seems like Lucien is the killer. However, if they could make this like Tristan or Aurora, personally, I'm thinking this could honestly be Aurora. We know something's going on with her, and we don't really know what it is yet, and I feel like it'd be a very interesting twist if this could be Aurora. Do I think that Lucien has some upper hand in this? Yes, I think the four of them are working together, like I said, but we know that this death was not caused by Lucien. So, Lucien tells Klaus to think about what he said, and Klaus is not thinking that Lucien's the killer. That's the thing right here. He's not thinking that Lucien's the killer. He is instead thinking that Lucien just wants to protect him when Klaus doesn't really feel he needs it. And Lucien's trying to tell him, look, people are dying, so obviously you need someone to protect you and be your bodyguard. And, he's trying to make Klaus think that he has nobody. But what I think Lucien's really trying to do is just separate him from everyone and then eventually get Klaus close enough to where he can kill him, because I think Lucien's goal is to kill Klaus. You can just tell that's what he has in mind, and he's hellbent for revenge. I mean, just think about it. He's probably hellbent for revenge. So Elijah and Tristan then have a chat on the conspiracies that Aya and the rest of Tristan's group have, and Tristan tells Elijah about the Sire War that's going on, and Tristan tries to convince Elijah that Lucien is actually trying to kill Klaus to kill his own brother. To get Klaus to kill his own brother. Now, that is very interesting. That I did not think was going to happen, but honestly, it would make sense, because think of where Elijah and Klaus are right now. I mean, every time they get into a room, it seems like these two are just going to go at it. They're going to just start fighting out of nowhere, and I can totally understand what Tristan is saying there. And he tells him that Lucien is the only one who knows where to locate the weapon that can kill an original vampire. Now, if I remember correctly, the way to kill an original, another way is just kill Klaus. You kill Klaus, you kill everyone on this show. And I've said this a million times, but Klaus waits so basically Elijah is thinking that this very well could be true, and obviously, probably doesn't trust Lucien very much. And I like that Elijah is starting to not trust Lucien while Klaus is. I think that's very interesting. So Klaus waits for Cami outside of the station, and Klaus tells her the story of how Lucien was reborn, and it was the first time that he and Elijah discovered that their blood could be used to create other vampires. And basically, this was a very interesting story. Lucien rose from death before Klaus could set the pyre on fire, and Cami tells Klaus that if Lucien is there to save him, but he doesn't have to kill him, and Cami's trying to keep Klaus from doing something he might regret because she knows something is going on with Lucien. She doesn't know what it is, but she knows that Lucien is definitely not to be trusted, and I like seeing Cami have that genuine concern here. And basically, Klaus is after Lucien, but is approached by Elijah, who tells him to stand down as if he hopes to reconcile with him because it's just not safe. And Klaus obviously is not going to listen to Elijah because they're not on good terms right now. Even though Elijah's trying to protect his brother, he's not going to listen to him. So Lucien's just stirring up trouble at this point. I think that really is what he's trying to do, and I think he told Tristan to say that to, again, divide Klaus and Elijah. So, flashback of Lucien feeding for the first time shows a man out of control and overindulging, and this really shows how dangerous and deadly Lucien really is. I mean, Lucien, I think, has been a killer from day one, and he and Tristan and Aurora and Aya are definitely killers. They are going around, I think, and murdering these people, but I don't think they're all doing it. I don't think Aya's murdered someone. I think Tristan, Aurora, and Lucien have all committed murders, and that's really what's going on here. It's not just one set person, it's all of them. Which I think would make a lot of sense, but I feel like Lucien's done most of the work, but I feel like Aurora's done a lot too, and I'll talk about that in the end scene of this, the last scene of this episode, but definitely, again, it's making us care. You understand Lucien, honestly. I do understand Lucien's character. I really do love what they're doing with his character. I do kind of feel bad for both Klaus and Lucien. Lucien in the sense that he really did want to be with Aurora, and it didn't work out very well. But for all we know, maybe he's now with Aurora. Maybe he's doing that as revenge for Klaus, for all we know. I mean, we know that Tristan and Aurora have been close together, and we don't really know what's been going on there, so definitely there's something more going on with that. But basically, Lucien says he doesn't hate Klaus anymore and wants Klaus to teach him to embrace being a vampire. And it was Klaus telling Elijah the story of the man, and basically that's who we realize, the story that we saw in the beginning, that's who he was telling the story to, was Elijah. And Elijah says brought out the worst in Klaus, and Klaus and Elijah want to find the weapon before Lucien and Tristan can, so that they can take out both of them, because they can tell that they're very dangerous. Even though Klaus, I think, does trust Lucien, which he shouldn't, obviously, they know how dangerous they are. They can tell they're being played, and they can tell they have a much darker agenda, so before anything bad can happen, it might be the best thing to just take both of them out, and I do agree with that probably is the best thing to do. But Elijah still hasn't given Klaus his forgiveness, though they need to work together. Klaus tells his brother that he will never fall by his hand, and Elijah doesn't answer. I don't feel like Elijah believes him, but I like what Klaus is saying. He's basically telling him, look, I'm not going to kill you, okay? Anyone can get me to do it. I'd never do it. I'd never feel comfortable with killing you, and I honestly feel that's true. Klaus would never kill Elijah. That's just something that Klaus, I don't think, would ever feel comfortable with doing. He would have so much regret if he did it, and I feel like Elijah doesn't believe him at all, which really sucks, but it's really because of Lucien and all the trouble that Lucien stirred up. That's why Elijah feels this way. It's really sad, but that's what's going on there. So unfortunately, it seemed like they were in a good place, but they're not. It doesn't seem like, even though they're going to be working together, they're not together. They're not on each other's side. They are completely against each other, but they have to work together, and I think that makes things even more interesting. And Klaus seems like he does want to forgive Elijah, and that's something I really do like seeing. Klaus is usually the one pissed off, while Elijah's more the reserved one, and this time it's the other way around. It's more like Klaus is trying to give, Elijah the satisfaction that he deserves, and tell him, look, I'm sorry, and I'm not going to hurt you. But Elijah just doesn't believe him because of all the shit that Klaus did last season, which, again, Elijah, I don't think, really understands that there's just certain things Klaus has to do to protect his family. And that could be because of, people, there was definitely trouble stirred up. I think Dahlia definitely got into their heads and made them think some things. Even though Dahlia died, I do think that's still there. I think Dahlia definitely did get into their heads and made them think some things that necessarily might not have been true, and it was kind of like he didn't really know who to trust anymore. I think that really is what's going on there. So Josh is scrubbing blood out of a carpet and asks Marcel if he's okay. Marcel says he doesn't know what's worse, being invaded or by Aya or dismissed by Elijah like a child. Because, Elijah, it doesn't really trust Marcel at all. It doesn't even seem like he really has any faith in Marcel, which is interesting. I don't fully understand why Elijah is doing that. I will say, though, I do like seeing Elijah, that even though he is pissed off at Klaus, he is still protecting his brother, because, again, I think at the end of the day, Elijah would never kill Klaus. So Vincent and Cami are still looking for the killer, who happens to be Tristan. It seems like Tristan is the killer at this point. It's very evident that he most likely is the killer, and it seems like he is the one that's doing this. Even though it seemed like Lucien was last week, now it seems like Tristan is. But again, I feel like they're all working together, and the very end of this episode is very interesting what we see here. Because you know how Tristan left Aurora last week? Well, we see again at the end of this episode that Aurora has actually taken out all of the people in that castle. And she calls her brother to notify him that she will be in New Orleans shortly. And she's taking out every single person. So we can see she's capable of committing some mass murders. We can tell that she might have honestly committed some. And I really feel that she's had the upper hand in these murders as well. And it definitely is going to get a lot deadlier than it is. And that's basically how this episode ends. And what an incredible episode this was. So, let me talk about Aurora for a second, because she's the one character that we don't really know too much about. We know that Tristan and Lucien are very erratic, they are very much, very violent, but Aurora seems just as violent. However, we know that she was, that Klaus was in love with her. So I feel like she plans on using this against him somehow, and I don't fully know why. I don't fully know how she's going to do this, but I definitely feel like that's the plan that they're trying to implement here, that she's going to turn Klaus against, if she talks to Klaus, obviously I think Klaus is going to listen to her, especially because Klaus is in love with Cami. He's not really on good terms there right now. He's not where he wants to be with Cami either. I do feel if Aurora came back and gave him that satisfaction that he wanted, I think he will definitely listen to her. Because Klaus at this point, that he's gotten to a point where as long as people listen to him, he will trust them, because he really doesn't have anyone. While he wants to have Elijah, he doesn't. It's really sad, but there was a point in this episode where you think that Klaus and Elijah, you think things are good, and they're not, because it's just the way that Lucien and Tristan have done this. They've made them think that he's made Elijah think that Klaus wants to kill his brother, which he obviously doesn't. Klaus has never stated, I want to kill Elijah. He wants to mend fences between them, but Elijah just doesn't seem like he wants to because he doesn't trust Klaus, and that's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens there. Aya. Let's talk about Aya. What does Aya want from Elijah? Because obviously, she wouldn't just come back. Obviously, she has some sort of plan with Elijah. We don't see a confrontation between them in this episode, which I like seeing. It's getting us, it's definitely setting things up for the rest of this season. With Elijah and I don't know what she's really going to plan to do, but she definitely has some sort of plan in motion with Elijah. Obviously, she's back for that reason, and we'll have to see really what she plans to do there, because that's going to be very interesting as well. Hayley and Jackson, I really like that he's trying to help her, definitely, but they seem very separated at this point. They seem like they're very separated from everyone, and I think that they're definitely going to get some threats coming to them, and they're not going to see it coming because, they're kind of just on the sidelines, with hope, and they think they're safe, but I don't think Hayley and Jackson are safe. I think they think they're safe, but they're not safe. Marcel has gone through so much shit in this episode. Marcel, honestly, just has Davina at this point, it seems. It seems like he has Josh and he has Davina. He doesn't have Elijah. Elijah doesn't seem to trust Marcel anymore. And why? Because Marcel, I think, does partially trust Klaus. I think, he's told Davina to get the witches to ally with Klaus. I think he still has that trust with Klaus. Because remember, him and Klaus had that truce. They've never gone back on it. Even though I think Marcel's, seen some of the things that Klaus has done, he understands that certain things need to be done. And Elijah just simply does not comprehend that because he's not that way. He's not a killer like Klaus is. He's not deadly like Klaus is. And he's not willing to do something like that. That's not who Elijah is as a person. And that's not necessarily a problem, but it's going to be. And that's the reason why Klaus and Elijah are so divided right now, because they just don't agree on things. Let's talk about Cami. What's going on with Cami is really interesting, because obviously Lucien is trying to manipulate her. He obviously is trying to frame her, but now it seems like Tristan is the killer. Is Tristan really the killer? Again, I feel like Tristan and Lucien, they're doing this together. They're working with Aurora. They have some sort of plan. They're doing this together, and there's definitely something more that's going on that we just don't know about. Vincent seems like he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. I don't really know what Vincent is doing at this point. I think Vincent doesn't even know what he's doing. Not to say he's not bad, it's just, I feel like he is kind of lost at this point. He should be with Davina, but he's with Cami. And why? I guess maybe because he had a connection with Cami they didn't have with Davina. I feel like Vincent's just trying to find his place, honestly, because as we know, he has no more magic. He's losing the magic. He's no longer going to be as powerful as he was, and he's kind of just losing the essence of who he is, and I really feel that's what's going on with him, and that's very interesting, I have to say, and I hope we delve deeper into Vincent, because he's the only character that really hasn't had something big yet happen to him this season, and I hope that happens soon, because obviously I really like I really like Vincent's character, and I hope they do some good stuff with him, because he is a really great character, I have to say. I also, like I said, really love the backstory in this episode of what happened with Lucien, Klaus, and Tristan. It's really interesting stuff, definitely. It's very interesting stuff, and I hope we see more flashbacks of this, because it is very interesting. And the thing is, as deadly as a killer as Lucien is, you do kind of understand, he's just mad at Klaus because that was his girl. Aurora was the person he really loved, and Klaus kind of looks at Lucien as a brother. That's how it really is, because, when you sire someone, you think of them as your family because you sired them. They wouldn't be alive if it weren't for you, and that's something I think is very interesting. Now, Lucien saying he doesn't plan on killing Klaus, I'm thinking that's bullshit. I'm thinking he is just saying that to make himself look innocent. Lucien, I think, has a much deadlier vendetta that we're seeing, and I don't know what it is yet, but that's something I like. I like that the show never fully tells you this is where this character is going, because that's part of the mystery of this season. In other seasons they've done that, but this season's definitely more of a mystery, which I like. There's definitely more of a mystery crime element to this season that I don't think we've had before, and it's something that I think is definitely very interesting, and I'm really loving about this season, and I think is definitely really great. And yes, a lot of this episode, again, like the first two episodes, was exposition. I think there was even less exposition in last week's episode, but I was fine with this episode being very exposition, flashback heavy, because we needed to get those stories told. We need to see who Tristan and Aurora are. Aurora is the one character we don't fully know what's going on with her. Does she hold the same feelings for Klaus? I want to see more of, what's going on with her. She's the only character we don't know too much about out of well, Aya as well. We know nothing about Aya, literally nothing about her, except she's the first person that Elijah sired, and she's very deadly. That's really all we know, and I hope we find out more. I'm sure we will find out more, but Aurora and Aya, we definitely need to find out how, they're connected. How are they so deadly? Does Aurora have those same feelings for Klaus? Was that all just somehow to? I feel like maybe even, maybe Aurora and Klaus, maybe she never even loved him. I'm not really sure. That could be very interesting to see what happens with that. And then, of course, Aya. Aya, of course, was sired by Elijah. What is her story? What happened to her? Why did he sire her? We don't know yet, and that's going to be very interesting. But overall, guys, another amazing episode. Absolutely loved it. By far best episode of the season. As you guys can tell, I am so on board with this season. I am loving every minute of it. It is such a fantastic season. There's not been anything bad so far this season. I don't even care that Davina wasn't in this episode because honestly, she didn't have to be. It's proved that you don't need every character. This is such a good show. You don't need every character in it to have a great episode. And this episode, I think, showed that perfectly. I absolutely loved it. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. What do you think's going on with all the sire lines? I think just the war between sire lines overall is very interesting. I can't wait to see where it goes. And it's only getting more and more interesting as the weeks go on. But I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for tonight's episode of Heroes Reborn. And don't worry, guys, Empire Review, it is coming. It'll come tomorrow. And I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.